Good afternoon. My name is Julia Hoggett and I'm the CEO of the London Stock Exchange. After a day spent discussing the complexities of ESG investing, the challenges of climate change and achieving net zero, as well as the financing of the natural world, it seems only right to end by speaking about leadership and purpose. When people ask me to describe my career, I usually start by talking about my first role in finance. A member of a debt capital markets team advising countries in Central and Eastern Europe on raising international market funding, often for the very first time. Early on, I remember helping one sovereign raise money in the teeth of the 1998 Russian crisis. From the very start, I was able to observe firsthand the purpose of the capital markets. That is, not to issue a bond instrument, but to provide the public financing that might enable a country to build new schools or new hospitals, or indeed in recent years, support people through the personal economic crises as a consequence of the pandemic. Even my decision to go into investment banking was driven by purpose. As a postgraduate student, I focused on how very low-income countries could adapt to exogenous price shocks. In this case, how Malawi could develop and apply policies to respond to the energy crises of the 1970s. I was intensely frustrated by the fact that my books in my university library still talked about Nyasaland, the former British protectorate, and not the independent Malawi. Unsurprisingly, these books did not enable me to understand how countries like Malawi could operate in a global economy founded on rules they didn't make. This experience led me to have a conversation with my father that changed the course of my life and which, ironically, he doesn't remember. Upon sharing my frustrations of my life as a researcher, my father candidly pointed out that if I wanted to really understand how low-income countries interacted with the global economy, I should become an investment banker specializing in emerging markets. I've subsequently realized that answering exam questions, such as this one, has been the driving force behind all my major career choices. That conversation with my father planted a seed of thinking that has stayed with me ever since, or possibly two seeds. One being the idea that capital markets, and therefore those who operate within them, have the power to make real, positive, big, consequential change in the world. And I've never really stopped to think about a career in finance until that day. However, helping countries get the funding for the projects that matter most, or helping get capital to the founders of companies that are looking for ways to make our future even better, or influencing the governing powers of the world to improve the way we do business, was something that appealed to me as a young social scientist. The second seed was the emerging realization that we do not often speak about capital markets in this way. We talk about deals, we talk about money, dare I say it, we talk about bonuses. Or as the media once quoted me as saying, we talk about capital markets as something that enables bankers to drive Lamborghinis. But we don't talk about the Great North Bog, an upland peatland restoration project across nearly 7,000 square kilometres in northern England, storing more than 400 million tonnes of carbon, key to the UK's climate and carbon sequestration targets, which has been financed to the tune of millions of pounds thanks to the first issuance of the UK's green gilts, structured by bankers and lawyers in London, bought by investors in the UK and listed on the London Stock Exchange. We don't talk about enabling in situ genomic sequencing in West Africa in order to isolate the ground zero of an Ebola outbreak. This can be done thanks to the technology of Oxford Nanopore, a company which IPO'd in London, raising its capital on the main market of the London Stock Exchange to fund its research and expand its operations. We also don't talk about the transparency our industry helps bring to the corporate world, helping shine the light of disclosure on all companies, including on those behaviours which may be damaging to our planet, enabling investors to challenge those behaviours and create the incentives for those companies to chart a new sustainable future, a unique feature of public markets. This is the understanding of the purpose of capital markets that is driving the next evolution of not just the London Stock Exchange's strategy, but the wider evolution of UK capital markets. This is why we recently stood up the Capital Markets Industry Task Force, which brings together representatives from every part of the capital markets ecosystem, from private and public companies to institutional and venture investors to advisors. A group tasked with stimulating industry engagement to help ensure that the UK's capital markets genuinely serve their ultimate purpose, and to help ensure that this purpose is well understood across society. Because capital markets are often not discussed in the UK through this lens. to direct capital into the real economy to create the jobs and innovation that have an impact on all of our lives, including the greening of the economy, and to help savers, pensioners and policyholders find the assets they need to invest in for life events and for a comfortable retirement. It is this sense of purpose that must drive the next stage of evolution of our capital markets. It's not about tinkering with the rules here or there. It is to look at our markets through the lens of their ultimate purpose, and then make sure that we built the ecosystem that best delivers on that purpose. This is how we set our corporate strategy at the London Stock Exchange. In many ways, it's why I took the job at LSEG, an institution that defines its purpose as driving financial stability, empowering economies, and enabling customers to create sustainable growth. And where at the London Stock Exchange, we view our role as a convener of capital and conversations. Our job is to bring together those who have capital with those who need capital in service of an objective. And there's no greater objective for our generation than the just transition to net zero. Sustainability is at the core of our business strategy. We know that and we say that, and that enables us to create the products and services that fulfill our purpose. We see our work falling into three categories: driving financing into the green economy and into the transition, driving dialogue between issuers and investors and with policymakers to speed up the pace of change. I often say we have a megaphone and we will use it. And driving standards in ESG data and disclosure to help direct capital to where it needs to go. It is why we created our sustainable and green bond markets, why we help the market identify companies with green revenues through the Green Economy Mark, why we encourage issuers to more clearly disclose their climate change strategies through targeted guidance, and why we're building a new voluntary carbon market at the heart of London. An initiative we believe will be key to driving huge amounts of funding to the projects we need on a global basis to help mitigate the worst effects of climate change. It is also why we're working on a roadmap to achieve ESG as BAU in the transition to net zero. Identifying what gaps exist in our current capital market ecosystem that prevent the market from embedding the net zero transition into the valuation of every asset and considered in every investment decision, and then seek to address those gaps, either directly where it is within our gift as the exchange, or by influencing and encouraging others, be they market participants, regulators, or policymakers. We believe that as one of the largest international exchanges in the world, it's incumbent on us to help ensure we have the pipes and plumbing in place that will help the market successfully calculate the net present value of investments discounted for their impact on the planet. I've always been a firm believer that it is knowing why one does something and a recognition of the ultimate goal and the importance of what is being done that helps one remain focused on what matters. It enables us to hold fast in the face of adversity, be that when navigating through choppy waters of economic cycles or geopolitical uncertainty. Without a clear understanding of our purpose, it's far too easy for one to get lost in the minutiae of the day-to-day, losing sight of the wood for the trees. Our role as leaders across industry, government, and the corporate world is to empower our organisations to keep coming back to our purpose, not to lose sight of what matters, and that's protecting our planet for future generations. Thank you.